instead of doing what you're thinking about buying real quick, I want you to notate every dollar you've spent on plugins over the past couple years. If you just started doing this, then it won't be that much. But if you've been doing this for a while, I want you to watch that total as you calculate it reach the thousands, maybe even 5,000, maybe even 10,000. Then I want you to understand this. Picture yourself flushing $10,000 down the toilet. You may use those plugins, but you don't have any ability to sell them back to anyone. So maybe you got good use out of them. Maybe you made a hit record. Maybe you're getting paid bank. For everybody else who didn't, could you have done the job using other things? Maybe stock things, maybe, the original Renaissance version or something. And if you could have, then what else could you buy with that money? Because I also want to add this. I'm not suggesting buy hardware. I have to come out right in front of this. I have an interesting belief on hardware. I would prefer to buy hardware than I would to buy plugins, but I don't want to buy any piece of hardware that I have to notate the knobs. So this opens up a can of worms. I understand that, but you got to understand all sides of this. I have several pieces of hardware that I mix with, and every time I have to notate knobs for recall, it makes me wanna, the rest. I don't have to even finish it. It's a bad move. And it's so frustrating to have a piece of hardware that you want to touch and you want to turn the knobs, but you consider whether you should or not every time because you're worried that now you'll have to notate stuff and how long that's going to take. And when you're trying to mix a song every day and you're trying to bounce between songs back and forth, you don't want to have to think about these extra things. You don't want to have to consider that and then not based on what else you have to do today. And, you got to bring this up for that guy. So you can't leave the song on your gear. So you got to notate everything. And how many things are you turning to notate, to remember to notate? And did you, and then add this to the puzzle. I'm a dude who checks things when I'm like, in other words, I know the human psyche, right? You're going to go quick over something. You're going to miss something most of the time. That's what we do as humans. We're not the most, we see it once and we know what it is. Trust me when I tell you, you'll glance over something and miss it. So I know this. I'll glance over it and then I'll check, which means if there's 3 knobs, I'm looking at them, noting them, and then I'm checking them and I'm making sure they're right. Then I move on to the next few knobs. What that means is time. And what we don't have much of is time. That's the one thing we have. The most valuable resource we have is our time. And I don't want to spend my time making notes. No matter how good a piece of gear sounds, making notes is like the bane of my existence. I hate doing it. I won't put myself in a position where I have to notate tons of knobs. Today's world of music doesn't allow for that. People want tweaks done. You want to work on more songs at one time. The band is never in the room. There's no chance I'm going to be notating knobs. No chance. And if that means not buying a compressor that I might be dreaming about, like a Fairchild, I'm not going to buy it. Because even though that thing would probably be the best thing ever, I don't want to just buy it and then leave it set some way that works for every song and then never touch it. That's just as frustrating, let's say, as like being in a relationship with the hottest girl ever and you can't touch her. What is that? Why would you even want that? You have it and it's beautiful and yeah, it's great to have, but you can't touch her? Like, come on. That's the same thing with buying a piece of gear where you consider you can't touch it or you got to notate or just putting yourself in a position where you got to notate. That's so ridiculous. I watched this video the other day of a guy talking about an SSL origin. Didn't come out that long ago, so you may know the video I'm talking about. I thought it was really hilarious. The guy's explaining, he's like, there's no downsides with this console. It's amazing. And this is my workflow. And it's so easy. All I have to do is this, and then when I do that, I have to note it. So no big deal. But, then after that, I'll have to print back into the computer. And that's my workaround so that and that's a piece of cake. Takes yada, yada, just the length of the song. And then I got to come over here and like, maybe, when I send my effects thing, usually I keep the fader here. But when I don't, I got to notate it down. I thought to myself, oh, it's easy. It's easy. Yeah, it's easy, but, and then I gotta do but. It's great here, but all these buts. Like, are you kidding me? When I watched that video, I thought to myself, yeah, right? Easy. Because I know myself. It's not enough to just see it once and it's write it down in a notepad. I'm checking, making sure. Because if I'm not, you don't know how many times you'll send a mix to somebody and they'll tell you something's different. You gotta know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's not. If you're gonna turn around and tell them, no, it's not. It's exactly the same. Which means your ears are playing tricks on you. And if you can't tell them that, then, and with absolute certainty, then you're leaving yourself open to do things over again. You keep doing them because maybe it is different. Maybe you missed a knob. Are you kidding me? Putting yourself in a position to do that, to have to remember stuff? I can't believe anybody in today's day and age would want to do that. So that leaves very few pieces of gear that I'm actually considering purchasing, because I refuse to get another piece of gear that I can't touch or I have to notate. I refuse to do that because, like I said, it's like having something amazing that you can't touch it. You just got to look at it. And it does great stuff for your audio, but you can't touch it, because if you do, then you put yourself in a position where you got to notate and remember. I ain't doing that. All right. And I'm not in the position to have an assistant do it all for me like some people. So, I don't have that luxury. So I ain't doing it. No way. And I'm also not buying tons of plugins, because I'd rather not look down at a piece of paper with my accounting and see, oh, I freaking spent how much on things I'll never ever get back and used on 2 mixes or 3 mixes. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how many plugins do we buy and not use? So, like, I don't. If you'll notice, like, my plugin list is actually kind of tight. I mean, it's got plenty of plugins on it, but it's really only the ones that I absolutely felt I needed to buy, because I really thought about it before I bought them. Like, I didn't go in and just, oh, this is cool, let's buy that. I try this demo. I go through all the paces when I'm demoing something, and not many things pass my test of I'll use this all the time, because if they don't, I don't find need for them. All right. So when you listen to what I'm saying to you, everything I'm saying is just 100% my belief. You may have your own. This is my opinion. My opinion is I'd rather save the money to buy something that is hardware I can touch, that will be able to be digitally recalled, and there's not much of it around. So you got to save a lot of money if you want to buy the stuff that actually does that, and maybe one day I will. But at the moment, there's not many things out there that you could do that, where you can get the hardware and it will digitally recall itself. This is the future, though. Like, we're very well aware that that is the future of audio. I don't know why all the manufacturers aren't doing it, but maybe some will see this video. And if you guys help out, maybe this will happen, because this will benefit every single one of us. We get real analog circuitry doing things that clearly cannot happen totally in the box. It can kind of happen, but not in the same way. Just not in the same way. And if you've ever used Outboard Gear on the way in, if you've ever used Outboard Gear while you're mixing, you know what I'm talking about. All right. And if you've never done it, then you don't know what I'm talking about. And that's fine, because it might be better that way. It's like never having tried a Krispy Kreme donut. You don't know how good they are, so you don't know what you're missing. That's fine. I have no problem. You could be there if you want. And maybe that's a better place to be than to understand how great it is and then not be able to buy anything like I'm at right now, which is like, I won't buy it. I just refuse to buy anything I have to recall with memory and write it down. And I just refuse. So I'm in a very strange no man's land, and a couple of you are probably there. So if enough of us make a stink about this, maybe people will actually start building the gear we need. And the gear we need is digitally recallable stuff that's also analog. There is, some software controlled hardware out there, and, people say it has its own problems and this and that. And bottom line is, maybe it does, but so make it better. Once they make it better, then everybody will want it. There won't be any of this, weird stuff about it that people mention, because You know, I've heard mixed things. I've heard it's the best stuff ever and you're out of your mind to buy anything else. And then I've heard, it doesn't quite do the thing because whatever, you know. So I don't even want to really weigh in because I don't own any digitally controlled analog stuff. So I can't give you my honest opinion on it. I've just heard mixed things. And, you know, I find it interesting that there's mixed things because why could it be bad? I don't understand how it could be bad. That APB 16 thing, what was it, Mac DSP? Those, like, that thing is touted very highly. People love that thing because it's hardware, but it's also, you know, it's software controlled hardware. Cool. That thing I've heard a lot of great things about. I haven't heard anybody really say it's bad, but I've heard people say other things are bad that are like this. You know, another thing's like the Better Maker. There's the Neve Genesis Black, obviously, but like who has that kind of money, right? So like just, you know, willing to spend on a console or whatever. So, and there's also, I've heard there's some bugs in some of these things. I'd probably be willing to deal with the bugs to not have to deal with notating stuff, you know, more often than not. So anyway, I don't want to go too long on this. I just wanted to let everybody know where I stand when it comes to plugins. I believe that everyone has the tools in their DAW right now. With whatever you've bought and whatever's on that list of what you've spent, you probably have the tools. Don't go into this thing looking like thinking you need a new tool. All new tools is repackaged versions of old tools. That's all they are. They change the way the knobs are made. They change the way it looks. They change the GUI, the interface, and that's it. They haven't done anything else. Like, it's really just that, and it's so many different versions of that. And unless there's something groundbreaking that happens, like a lightning fast Soothe 2 type of thing, you know, for side chaining kicks and stuff, like, great. I agree. It's awesome. Some things pass my test, but most of the time I'm looking at stuff and I'm thinking, what? Like, what? Why would anyone need that? We got 100 things that do the same thing right here. You know, I feel this way about a lot of stuff like that. Like a widening plugin, like with Brower Motion and the S1 Imager, those things are awesome. There's other ones out there. There's tons of them out there. But like I said, even that Wolf compressor thing's got a sick like widener in there. And there's so many different ways you could do it just using those. Sure, you could buy new ones if you want, and some of them might sound better than others. And Ozone Imager is fine. Like, they're all fine. So if you just need wider, like, why go out and buy like a new version of wider? Wider is wider. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. It's just, I see a lot of the myth around some of the stuff that makes no sense to me. And I'm just like, I don't need that. I just don't need that. Like another version of another EQ, like why? Another version of another compressor, why? I just don't get it. So anyway, that's why I don't waste my money on that stuff. Put it away. This is my goal, to be able to buy the thing that comes out that will be digitally controlled, analog, that is going to be the first thing that's amazing. Because I don't know if we're there yet. We may be there on some of those things that are a fortune. One day they'll come down to consumer prices where people can actually buy these things who aren't like Grammy-winning people, you know, like one day. Until then, it's save time as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't recommend buying the latest and greatest because all the old tools become new tools. There's no, like, music doesn't sound dated because of the tools you're using. That's the opposite of true. Music's like cycles. It comes around in cycles, just like fashion, because it's about the culture, and the culture moves in cycles. That's why the clothing that's now was in the 90s, and that before that was another version of it, and that's how it works. That's how it works. All right, so you can do everything with all the tools, and no tools are dated, and if you're thinking that way, you just don't understand the history of music, because everything you think is a new tool is an old tool, all right? And if I could buy one compressor, it would be the Fairchild, the oldest compressor of all time. It would probably be that, because of what it is and how amazing that thing sounds, and the line amp is just beautiful, just running through, and the tubes, beautiful. I would buy that, but not if I got to notate the knobs. Not worth it. So that's where I'm at. You know, that's where I'm at. If I had to put money into something, it would probably be the best and clearest way to hear everything, including low end. I want the best, clearest picture of what I'm hearing, because the better I can hear, the better I can mix. And if you don't understand that, then that's the problem right there, because you can't hear things better using plugins, and some plugins have like room models and this and that. I get it. So like that's the exception to this maybe, but not really. Every room model I've ever pulled up, like I told you, I got a high bar on what is good to me. And when I'm telling you that monitoring speakers where you can hear every detail, if you've ever sat in a room where you can hear every detail of that's because of the monitors, and it's because of the room and how it's treated, but it's because of the monitors more. With bad monitors, you'd be in that room and things would be vague. Things would be vague. Mid-range would be vague, low end would be vague. So you're going to try to make great decisions using the newest plugins and you can't even hear. How are you going to make great decisions? The better you can hear, the better you can mix. Bottom line. So if I had to buy things, it would be monitors. Because you can always upgrade your monitors. And then when you're working on the ones that the top of the top guys have, you're also hearing what the top of the top guys can hear. And granted, their ears are great, obviously, but maybe yours are too. How would you know? You don't have the speakers playing, that will reproduce those sounds. So how would you know? You understand what I'm saying? We can make music using anything, including NS10s, like I use all the time. So I'm not saying you can't make music using that. I'm just saying you want the edge, then be able to hear everything. Not you want the edge, use the latest plugin because it puts a little air over the snare, and you can't do that using a Mag 4 EQ. You can't do that using an SSL EQ. You can't do it using a Neve EQ. What, you can't do it? Of course you could do it. Of course you can. Of course you can compress everything using the stock stuff. Of course you can. Of course you can widen it, stocks. Of course you can limit it. What, are you kidding? It's all the same stuff. No reason to go crazy, all right? Seriously, you guys got this. If you got this, do me a favor, slap every dollar you're going to save right on the like button. Drop a comment below on anything you think you can't live without in the studio, because I'd love to hear that. And hit subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Evan Jaffe. This is Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.